It was closer. Lena lunged for the remote, slamming the television off. She grabbed her phone, ready to call someone, anyone. But the screen of her phone reflected her face, and behind it, a black, featureless head leaned in, whispering something she couldn't hear. She screamed. The lights flickered, the wind outside howled violently, and then silence. When she dared to look again, the figure was gone. The only thing left was her own reflection, grinning back at her. It's late at night. The house is silent except for the flickering glow of the television screen. A horror movie plays, its eerie soundtrack filling the empty space. You tell yourself it's just a film, just actors, just special effects. But as you sit there, alone in the dim light, a gnawing sense of unease creeps up your spine. What if something is watching you too? What if the horror isn't just on the screen, but right behind you? These are 3 terrifying tales of people who dared to watch horror movies alone, only to realize that the true terror was waiting for them in the darkness. Lena had always loved horror movies. She wasn't the type to get scared easily, and nothing thrilled her more than a night alone, wrapped in a blanket, with a bowl of popcorn and a classic supernatural film. That night was no different. The house was quiet, save for the wind tapping at the windows. She had chosen The Wraith's Grin, a cult classic known for its disturbing imagery. As the movie played, shadows danced across her living room walls, cast by the glow of the television. Halfway through, the movie took an unsettling turn. The protagonist, a young woman, was being stalked by a faceless figure in the background of every scene. The figure never moved, never made a sound, but was always there, lurking in reflections, in windows, in mirrors. Lena chuckled nervously. "Creepy," she muttered, shaking her head. Then, she saw it. Not on the screen, but in her own reflection. Across the dimly lit living room, a large antique mirror hung on the opposite wall. And in its reflection, standing just behind her couch, was a dark silhouette. Lena froze, her breath hitched in her throat. The figure was motionless, just like in the film, a tall, humanoid shape, its head tilted ever so slightly. She didn't want to turn around, but she had to. Slowly, her shaking hands gripped the couch cushion as she shifted her body, inch by inch, preparing for whatever horror lay behind her. But when she finally turned, there was nothing, just the empty living room. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She let out a shaky breath and turned back to the mirror. The figure was still there, and this time, story 2, The Wrong Movie. Ethan had an odd fascination with obscure horror films, especially ones with urban legends surrounding them. He prided himself on tracking down the most unsettling lost films that few had ever seen. One night, while browsing a shady forum, he came across a discussion about a cursed movie called The Watching. Supposedly, it was a film that had only been shown once in a small European theater before being banned. Every copy had been destroyed, except for one, and it had somehow made its way onto the dark web. Without hesitation, Ethan clicked the provided link. The video player loaded a grainy, black and white film. The movie began with a shot of a dimly lit room, similar to his own living room. The camera was still, as if someone had left it recording in the corner. There was no music, no dialogue, just the quiet hum of static in the background. He frowned. Was this a prank? Then something moved. A shape, barely visible in the shadows. Ethan squinted, leaning closer to the screen. The figure in the movie seemed to be watching something, its head tilting toward the camera as if it knew he was there. The video cut to black. Then the screen changed. Now the camera in the movie was pointed at Ethan's own living room. His blood turned to ice. He looked around, his breath shaky. It was identical, down to the coffee mug on his table, the way his curtains hung, even the position of his TV remote. His phone buzzed. A new message. Don't turn around. A cold dread settled in his gut. His instincts screamed at him to run, to leave the apartment, but his body wouldn't move. Slowly, his eyes flickered back to the screen. The movie was still playing. And now there was something behind the couch, a shadowy figure, watching him. The screen flickered. The figure moved closer. Ethan finally found his voice. He grabbed the remote, trying to exit the player, but the buttons didn't work. The movie kept playing. The figure kept moving. And then, his screen cut to black again. This time, the reflection of his TV showed something sitting right beside him on the couch. Story 3. The Last Viewer. Mira wasn't supposed to be home alone that night. Her roommate had an overnight shift, leaving her in their small apartment with nothing but her favorite horror films to keep her company. She chose a classic, The Eyes That Watch, a ghost story about a vengeful spirit that cursed anyone who watched its final scene. It was all superstition, of course, just another urban legend. As the movie neared its climax, the atmosphere in the apartment felt different. The air was thick, heavy. The screen darkened and the film's protagonist whispered, "It's watching you now." Mira chuckled, but her voice came out shaky. The movie ended, and then her TV shut off by itself. A soft tap came from the hallway. She sat up, her heart hammering. Another tap, closer. Mira reached for her phone, but before she could grab it, the television screen flickered back on. Only now, it wasn't the movie. It was her. A live feed of her sitting on the couch, staring at the screen. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked around, scanning the apartment, but saw nothing unusual. Then, in the reflection of the TV,